Hey everybody, how's it going? It's good to be back. It's been a while since I put a video out. Well, almost a week now, but I just wanted to get on here. I was talking with somebody and they were thinking about adding Linux onto their system at home, and so I figured I could do a walkthrough on doing an install of Manjaro Linux, specifically the Cinnamon desktop. I know we did Cinnamon on my introduction to Linux Mint, but Cinnamon was always one of my favorites when it was desktop environments, and so I figured that one's just the most easily to transition to from Windows, so we're going to give that one a shot. I'll apologize if I sound a little tired. I got my second round of COVID vaccine yesterday, and I'm feeling pretty lousy, so let's just get into this, and I apologize again. Hopefully you can deal with my kind of morose sounding voice. So again, my audio as well. I received a couple tips that my audio isn't great, which I'm aware. I don't have a microphone. I'm basically using the internal mic in my laptop. For lack of anything better, and to be honest with you, until I know if this channel is going to actually go anywhere, I can't bring myself to invest in anything. So if things start growing and people start enjoying this channel, then absolutely we'll put a little investment into it. We'll get some decent equipment, but until then, hopefully you guys can tolerate my audio being what it is, and hopefully you can still get something out of this video. So here we go. Let's open up our Brave browser here and go to the Manjaro homepage. It's manjaro.org. It's a great distribution. I started out on Linux Mint and quickly switched from Mint over to Manjaro. Nothing wrong with Mint, but as I looked at Manjaro more, I really enjoyed the fact that it was more of a rolling release, a little more up to date, and I just liked it. It's got a lot to go. Got a lot going for it. It's got a lot to offer. I want to touch on a couple of the features. You can come to their website and check out everything for yourself. I won't go into detail, but two things I do want to point out. If you go under more, down here, the forum and the wiki. Two of the best pieces of documentation you can have. The forum is excellent. People are helpful. As long as you're willing to put in a little work before you just come on here asking a bunch of questions, people are more than happy to help you out with stuff. The wiki is great documentation. If you got a problem, if you got a question, you can come here and look it up, and odds are it's going to be in here. And if not, the fact that Manjaro is an Arch-based distribution means you can also use the Arch wiki, which hands down, the Arch wiki, in my personal opinion, is the best piece of documentation for any Linux distribution out there. It is spectacular. I use it on a daily basis, literally multiple times. So it's great. Again, you can use that since Manjaro is an Arch-based distribution. You have that. You have the Manjaro wiki. You have the Manjaro forum. So yeah, all kinds of stuff. So if you're going to try out Manjaro, you're going to want to come down here to the download tab. Click on that. Up here is your editions. We have the official ones, which are GNOME, KDE Plasma, and XFCE. You have community editions: Budgie, Cinnamon, Deepin Stable, gorgeous desktop, by the way. Deepin is beautiful. If I use desktop environments, I might go with that one now that I'm a little more comfortable in Linux. But then it's got a couple. It's got Mate, but it's also got a couple of window managers: i3 and Sway. i3 is a great window manager if you want something a little more minimal and a little more customizable, but the learning curve for using these is quite a bit steeper than just going to a regular desktop. Sway is basically, from what I hear, I haven't used it myself or got into it too much, but from what I hear is basically i3, but instead of using Xorg, it uses Wayland. So I believe they're pretty much the same. Don't quote me on that because I haven't been into Sway at all yet. But we're going to be doing the Cinnamon version. So if you click on Cinnamon, it'll take you to the download. Click Get Cinnamon, and then from here you just choose your download. If you want a minimal, which comes with basically just the operating system and nothing else, no additional software, then you can click that. But if you want the up and running, ready to go, then you're going to want to click this download here. Once you click it, it's going to download just like anything else. Just wait for it, and then you're good to go once it's done. Once you get it downloaded, you're going to need to create a bootable USB. So what you need is a USB drive big enough to hold your system. Doesn't need to be real big. You can use just a couple gig USB drive. But you're going to want to plug that in, and you can use a tool like Balena Etcher is what I usually use. You can use Whoa USB. You can use Rufus. There's plenty of different tools out there. If you just go on and Google bootable ISO or bootable USB, you'll find these different tools out there. There's Yummy. There's Ventoy. There's just all kinds of them. Basically, then what you'll do is you'll fire up that application. It'll ask you for the file you want, so you just link the file into it. It'll ask you for the destination of the file, so you make sure you're clicked on your USB and not on your regular drive, but make sure the USB is selected and fire it off, and away it'll go. When it's done installing that ISO onto your USB, what you're going to want to do is plug that into one of the ports on your computer, shut your computer down, or reboot your computer. And as you reboot your computer, you need to do whatever you got to do to get into the BIOS menu. F2, F9, Escape, F12, F10, whatever button it is that gets you into your BIOS, you need to hammer away on that while your computer's starting up. Get into that BIOS. You're going to want to go in, and if you have the opportunity to disable secure boot, go ahead and do that. And also, you're going to need to make it read bootable USB drives. So then go ahead and do that. Once you've done that, you can actually go and select in the BIOS menu, you can select what you want to boot from, whether it's your disk or that USB. Go ahead and select the USB. Once you've done that, the computer will restart booting from that USB, and you will end up with Manjaro on this screen once that USB boots. Now, we have a couple different options here. We've got the time zone and we've got the keyboard and stuff like that. We don't need to mess with those. What you're going to want to do is go here. You have boot with open source drivers and you have boot with proprietary drivers. My recommendation to you, if you're using Wi-Fi, is to boot with proprietary drivers. If you're using Ethernet, you can do either or, but my recommendation is to use proprietary drivers. It's just more than likely that you're going to actually load all your drivers and get all your drivers fired off if you do this route. If you're using NVIDIA, you absolutely need to boot with proprietary drivers, but again, just my recommendation. So we're going to select that. It's going to take a second to fire up here. Again, I am in a virtual machine, so if you're doing this on actual hardware, it might be a little quicker than mine's running, but it's all right. We'll keep going. So we just need to wait for it to boot, and once it boots, we're going to get this. Now, here's some options here you can have right off the bat. You don't need to do any of these just yet, though. This will all be an option when you install it. You can select your different panel here. We can close that out. We don't need to worry about check video drivers here. Basically, from right here, we have our Manjaro Hello, which gives us the README, gives a release info, gives you a link to the wiki, the forums. This will all be in the distribution when you have it installed as well. So here is kind of one caveat depending on how you're installing this. If you're installing this all by itself, erasing your disk and just starting fresh, then that's great. You can just click launch installer and be on your way. If you're not, if you're doing dual boot, you can do that in the installer. I would always just recommend go into the menu and type in gparted. And when you do gparted, it's kind of like the partition manager in Windows. So basically what you're going to want to do is go in here, and if you're doing dual boot and you need to partition your drive, do it here. It's easier to go this route. So once you get in here, just go ahead and partition and free up the amount of space you want to install your Linux distribution on. And once you're done, you just go ahead and click apply. Once you've got all your settings set how you want them, and you have as much free space ready as you want, like I said, go ahead and hit apply, and it will partition the drive right here. Once that's done and you have the drive all partitioned, you just come back out here and you click launch installer. Now, the installer is super simple. I mean, they don't come any simpler than this. Start off here and we have language. Well, what are we going to pick? We're American English. You might not be. You go ahead and just click the drop down here and you can pick just about any language you can think of here. But we're going to stick with American English and we're going to go next. Now we're picking our time zone. I'm not in Chicago, but I am in the Central Time Zone, so we're going to leave that as it is. If you're not, you go ahead and just pick wherever you are. You can come down here and write it in if you want, but we're just going to stick with Chicago and the Central Time Zone because that's where we're at. Next, Now we're choosing our keyboard. Depending on which keyboard you use, just go through and find the one you want. We're US English, which is fine. If you need to test to make sure you have the right one selected, you can type down here and make sure everything's okay. Once you know you have the correct keyboard selected, just go ahead and hit next again. Now here's the part where if you are dual booting or you're only utilizing a portion of your disk for the Linux system, you're going to want to make different decisions here. If you're just having Linux and nothing but, you can just click on this one, erase the disk, and it's going to delete anything on the disk, and it's going to install to the disk and have nothing but Linux there. You also can do manual partitioning if you want to create your own partitions within that Linux install that you're doing. If you want to have a separate root directory and a separate home directory, you don't have to. I do that simply because it makes ease of a fresh install so much better. All my configuration files and everything can stay as they are in my home directory, and if I have to do a fresh install, I can just do an install on the root directory and then mount my home directory, and everything is as I had it. So, but that's me. That being said, you can do that if you want. I'm not going to walk through that on this one. If you're doing dual boot, you're going to want to select this manual partitioning as well, and it's going to ask you which partition you want to use, or shoot. It's been a while since I've done this, so basically I can't remember if you select erase disk, I believe that's going to do the whole disk. If you select manual partitioning, it'll allow you to select the empty space if you have empty space. Whatever you do, whichever selection you choose, make sure you click on the empty space you have supplied for your Linux distribution, otherwise it will wipe your other distribution. Me doing this in a virtual machine, and it's been a while since I've done the install with installer like this. I've been using Arch for a while now, so the using fdisk has been my way of doing things, and it's a little different than this. But make sure whichever, don't do the erase disk, but click on the manual partitioning, and there should be an option to be able to select just the free space on the disk. So however you get to that free space, if you're doing a dual boot, make sure you get to that free space. Once you've done that, we're going to do erase the whole disk anyway, but once you do that, you just want to hit next, and you're going to input your information here. So put your name in, whatever you want your username to be. You can change the name you want to use as a login. You can change the name of your computer. I am gonna do that. We're gonna change it to Manjaro VM. So check your name, what name you want to log in as, what you want the name of your computer to be, and then also you need a login password. So we need a super secret password that is uncrackable. So we do that, and then we type it again. You can use login automatically without asking for a password. I do not recommend that. Or you can use the same password for the administrator account. So when you try to do something as root, or when you try to log in and use the sudo command, you can use the same password, or you can have a separate password. I recommend using the same password if you're the only one on that computer. So just click that. We're good to go there. We click next, and it's going to go over before it actually does anything. It's going to verify that, okay, this is what you want to do, right? Because this is what's going to happen. So here's the spot where you're going to want to make sure that it still shows that it's not erasing your any other partition you have in there that you don't want. So if you're dual booting with Windows, you want to make sure that it's still going to show after here. It still shows Windows on one, or another partition, and then Manjaro on the second one. You see these little squares here. One will be Manjaro, and the Windows side will be a different color here, and you'll have another square of that color. So once you have that done and you're good with this, you click next, or you click install, and it'll warn you again. It's very good about making sure you know what you're doing and what's going to happen. So we click install now, and it's going to go through and go through the install process. Now this might take a few minutes, so we're going to wait for a second here and just see how this goes. If it's going to take a few minutes, I might just pause the video and come back once it's done. But there's no other input you're going to need to do between now and the time that this thing's installed. It's going to work its magic, and you're going to be good to go. So we are going to place a pause on the video here, and we will be back. Okay, so once the install is done, it has you reboot the system, and this is what you come up with. You'll come up with a login screen. Obviously, you enter your username and your password that you created during the install. But once you do that, you have a desktop environment real similar to what you have on Windows 10. Once we get in here, you can see down in the corner here, we've got a Start Menu button. Just like Windows, nice and easy. It's got all of your accessories and your graphics and your internet, Firefox and all that. Your office software, your panel chooser, programming. Any of your tools and programs are going to be down here, just like Windows. When you click on the Start menu on Windows, it's basically the same here. Up here, though, you have your launchers for your Firefox, just a quick launcher, same as down here. You also have your settings here, so any settings you want to change, you just come here. If you want to change your theming, you can come in here and change your button layout on the top of your windows. You can change your file icons. You can actually go and download hundreds of different file packs or icon packs off of the internet and install them real simple. Your controls here, your buttons, you can change the way your buttons look, the way your cursor looks. You can change the whole layout. So if you want, see, as of right now, we look like this when we launch our Start menu, but if you wanted to come in here and change to, I don't know, say cinnamon, we're going to launch and it's going to look a little more sleek. It's going to have a little transparency to it. So there's just a bunch you can change on that. You can also come over here to add and remove and add many more themes for your system that you want. Settings here, you can turn on and off like scroll bars, icons on the buttons and the menus, stuff like that. That can all be changed here. You've got your backgrounds here. If you click here, it'll bring up all the different backgrounds you can change to. You have effects. You can turn on window effects, dialog box effects, menu effects. So this is more going to be for your system resource usage. If you're concerned about speed and resource usage, you can change those. You have font selection there. You've got some applets and some desklets. I covered those on my Mint video. So if you want to run like a clock or something like that on your desktop, you just come in here. There's more than 3, obviously. If you go to download, then you're going to have a whole bunch. You might have to update the cache there, but you're going to have a whole bunch of them. So you can choose from those. You've got your different desktop. Click there and you can have the computer, the home, whatever you want automatically on your desktop. You can have nothing on your desktop if you want a clean, sleek look. There's different extensions you can add. We have to download. It doesn't come with any of this. The cache is out of date, so let's just update that real quick and see what we've got there. Transparent panels, tile the windows instead of having, when you open multiple windows, instead of having them on top of each other with little tabs down here, you can have them tiled, so you'll take up a portion of the screen with one window and a portion of the screen with another window. Got a slider. You've got wobbly windows, which means when you move them around they wobble. So just kind of some fun stuff there for customization as extensions. Hot corners, if you want to launch a program from one of the corners by just dragging your mouse up there, then you can enable the hot corners. So that's pretty cool. We have screensavers down here. We have like your Bluetooth. Blue Man is going to be your Bluetooth setup. Set up your different displays if you have multiple displays. Power management here. And you have settings manager. Your login window. This is going to tell you about your system. So all pretty basic there. Down here in the corner, we have like this icon right here. If you click on that, that's called POMAC. That's going to be your system updates and actually your system installer, your software installer. So if you're looking for a certain program, you can come in here and just click on browse and then type in the name of the system you're looking for, or you can browse by category. And featured, and so it'll tell you photo, video, music and audio, productivity, games, utilities, whatever you're looking for. You just click on communication and news. Say we've got Firefox, we've got Hex Chat, email, Bitcoin. So you just find what you're looking for and you click install and away you go. Follow the prompts, and depending on the size and the dependencies needed, it'll take from a couple seconds to a couple minutes usually, and you're good to go. There's no more going online, getting on the internet, finding the web page for whatever you're looking to install, downloading the exe file, opening the exe file. There's none of that. It's just you can come here and type in what you want, and if you're comfortable with it, instead of coming into Palmac, which is the name of that, you can just open up a terminal, and for Manjaro, and any Arch-based distribution uses the Pacman package manager. So say you wanted to install Firefox, you'd go sudo pacman-s Firefox, and that's going to install Firefox for you. Or say you wanted Brave browser, sudo pacman.brave, oops, not brace, brave. Or if you wanted Thunderbird. So, and that's going to just, you hit enter, it'll ask you for your password, you put in your password, and it'll go through the install for you. Super efficient, super easy, and I tell you what, if you're not comfortable in the terminal now, once you start using it and get comfortable in it, you're never going to want to leave it. I know I said that on my last video, but I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it, because the terminal is my best friend. I love living in the terminal. I don't use a desktop environment anymore. I have a window manager that just basically manages my windows when I open them, and pretty much everything's done from the terminal on my end. I love it to death. Workspaces and terminal are the best thing ever. So that being said, it's all pretty simple, pretty similar to Windows. You got your file manager down here, so you open that up. This is the Nemo file manager. If you can work Windows File Explorer, you can work this. You can change the icon size down here. You can change the layout here. You can open or close the tree down here, change the layout of the tree. If you come up here to view, you can add an extra pane in case you're trying to drag back and forth from one file to another. Makes it a little easier. Super simple. But basically it's all just the same, or real familiar to Windows. You got your clock and your user down here. You've got workspaces, and you've got your file manager. This here is going to be showing the desktop, and then here you can change back and forth between workspaces. This is going to launch your terminal. This is going to launch your browser. This is going to be your start menu, just like in Windows. You can change the panel if you right-click on the panel. Excuse me. Panel settings, you can adjust it and move all this stuff to the middle if you want. You can have the panel be transparent if you want. You can just do whatever you want with this, basically. It's super awesome. So again, I hope that kind of made it a little easier for you on your install. Again, you'll go in and find what you want, download it, whether it be Manjaro, Cinnamon, or something else. Then you're going to create that bootable USB using Balena Etcher or Rufus or Woe USB or whatever other program you want. You're going to create that bootable USB. Then once you have that bootable USB created and you've got your BIOS set to be able to boot from a USB on your computer, you just boot into that USB and then click on the install and walk through the install process like we did. Again, if you're dual booting, make sure before you click the install portion, you go to the gparted or whatever disk partition management tool is on the installer there, and you separate out the free space you want for your Linux install. And then once you do that, when you're going through the install process, make sure you select that free space so you don't lose everything else that's on your drive. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. So I hope this was helpful to people. If you've got any questions, or if it was confusing or anything like that, feel free to shoot me a message, let me know. And yeah, I hope this helped out. I've got a couple videos coming up for the terminal. I know it's a little scary, but I'm going to show you a couple things to maybe ease the nerves for actually getting in and using the terminal, because I'll tell you what, it is amazing. You're not going to want to leave it once you get into it. So again, thanks very much. God bless. You guys have a great evening, and I look forward to talking with you in my next video.